Sometimes fate doesn't announce itself with thunder. It arrives quietly, slipping into a moment when a man is already exhausted, already praying for a little light. Jude did not know that in the morning he stepped out with trembling hope. Destiny would test his heart before rewarding his pain. The city was barely awake when Jude hurried toward the bus station, clutching his worn brown file as if it could hold his collapsing world together. His face carried both urgency and sorrow. Though he walked fast, his spirit felt slow, dragged down by weeks of disappointment and the heavy silence of a home where love had faded. His whisper was almost a breath. God, please let today be the day things change. But life had not always been this heavy. Once, Jude stood tall among his university classmates, bright, confident, celebrated. Straight out of school, he secured a position as a petrochemical engineer in a major company. The salary was good, and for a time he lived a life many dreamed of. He rented a tasteful apartment, bought a clean, reliable car, and married Lucy, the woman whose smile once filled him with pride. Their early years glowed with simple joys, dates in the open air, little surprises, weekend laughter. But every bright season has its shadows. Jude's company collapsed without warning, drowning hundreds of workers in uncertainty, including him. What began as a single month without income gradually stretched into many. His savings thinned like morning mist. He knocked on countless office doors, submitted endless applications, stood in lines of rejection, and listened to silence echo through his phone. Meanwhile, Lucy changed. Her voice sharpened. Her patience evaporated. The tenderness she once offered Jude became buried under frustration. "Is this how a man should be?" she asked him one evening, her arms folded like a barrier between them. Every day felt like a battleground, every conversation an accusation. Their savings disappeared. He sold the car. He sold the furniture. Their old apartment became a memory as they moved into a cheaper, forgotten part of the city. Even there, Lucy found no softness left inside her. That morning, her voice rose again, shattering the fragile quiet. "Find something today, Jude. I cannot live like this anymore." Jude was about to answer when his phone rang. Her suspicion appeared instantly. "Who's calling you so early?" Jude answered with shaky fingers. A calm male voice introduced himself from Metro Pro Chemicals PLC. They wanted him for an interview, 8 a.m. sharp. Hope shot through him like breath into tired lungs. He repeated the time, confirmed the details, and Lucy simply turned away, unimpressed. But for Jude, this chance felt like sunrise after a long night. He dressed carefully in his best shirt, combed his hair, and stepped outside with renewed determination. But the city had its own plans. The bus he boarded crawled into a monstrous traffic jam, horns blaring, passengers complaining, minutes slipping away. Jude stared at his wristwatch again and again, panic tightening his chest. He whispered to the roads, "Please, not today." But the traffic only grew worse. He made a quick decision. The moment the bus reached the next stop, he jumped down and began walking fast, almost running. His file clutched tightly, his hopes pulled forward by sheer will. He believed that if he moved quickly enough, he could still arrive on time. He whispered to himself, "Just get there. Just get there." He didn't know that destiny had already arranged a test for him on the next quiet street, a test that would determine the course of his life. What unexpected turn waits for Jude just around the corner, ready to reshape the path he's forcing himself to follow? There are moments in life when a single decision stands between the future we're chasing and the destiny we were meant for. Jude, breathless and determined, stepped onto a quiet street that would demand the greatest choice of his life, one he never planned for, yet one that would rewrite everything. He walked quickly, almost jogging now, his brown file tucked tightly under his arm. The echoes of Lucy's insults still clung to him, but behind them was a stronger force, the hope of finally rising again. The road ahead stretched long and nearly empty. If he could just keep moving, just keep pushing, he might still reach Metro Prochemicals before the final shortlist closed. His heart pounded as he checked his wristwatch. Time was slipping like sand. He whispered again, "God, please." But instead of an answer, he heard something else, a faint, trembling voice behind him. "Excuse me, please, young man. Can you help me?" Jude stopped as if the air itself held him still. He turned slowly. There, beside a sleek but silent car, stood a well-dressed woman. Her face carried a mixture of confusion and fear. The road was too quiet. No passerby, no security guard, no roadside mechanic in sight. It was just her, and Jude. He felt his pulse race for a different reason now. She looked at him with pleading eyes, unfamiliar yet strangely human in their vulnerability. "Please," she said again. "My car just stopped. I don't know anything about cars. There's no one around. Please help me. I'm scared to stay here alone." Jude's first instinct was to look at his wristwatch again. The interview. The opportunity. The one chance he had begged God for. If he stopped to help her, he would lose everything he had been chasing. If he walked away, he would abandon a stranger who clearly needed him. His mind spun. He could hear Lucy's sharp voice mocking him for always being too kind. He could feel the pressure of losing so much already. He could taste the fear of failing again. But he also saw the woman trembling slightly as she stood beside her lifeless car. He stepped back as if to leave. The woman's voice cracked gently. "Please, sir. I don't feel safe." That was the moment Jude's heart overpowered his fear. He inhaled deeply and nodded. "Okay, madam. Let me look at it." Relief washed over her face immediately. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Jude opened the bonnet, the warm engine faintly ticking like a wounded animal. He leaned in, checking connections, listening carefully, inspecting the battery, running his fingers through the cables. The sun pressed lightly on his shoulders as he worked. Sweat rolled down his neck, but he didn't stop. After a few focused minutes, he spoke calmly. "I think I found the problem. Let me fix it." He tightened a loose contact, adjusted the terminals, tapped the battery casing, and checked the ignition flow. Then he closed the bonnet with a hopeful breath. "Madam, try it now." The woman, Madam Rose, slid into her seat and pressed the ignition. The car roared back to life instantly. Her face lit up with relief and gratitude. "It's working." "Oh, thank you so much." Jude forced a small smile. I need to go now. I'm already late." "Wait," she called, stepping out. "At least let me give you a ride." He shook his head gently. "Madam, thank you, but I'm heading the opposite direction. It's far from your route." "Are you sure?" she asked softly, genuinely concerned. "Yes, madam. I will be fine." He held his file tightly and began to run again, his feet pounding the road, his breath heavy with fear and hope mixed together. Madam Rose watched him disappear down the street. She whispered to herself, moved by his sincerity. What a good man. And he didn't even take a ride. May God help him too. Jude didn't hear her words. All he heard was the sound of time slipping away. Jude is racing toward the interview he desperately needs, but what awaits him on the other side of that office door? There are disappointments that sting for a moment, and then there are the ones that crush a person so deeply that even breathing feels heavy. Jude walked into Metro Prochemicals with the last threads of hope holding him together, only to face a blow he never saw coming. By the time he reached the massive company gate, his shirt clung to his back with sweat, and his heartbeat throbbed in his ears. He wiped his forehead quickly, straightened his shirt, and held his file tightly against his chest. His legs felt weak, but his spirit whispered, Just get inside. Just try. Inside the reception, the air was cool, the atmosphere professional, and the front desk officer looked like someone who measured people with her eyes before listening to them. Jude stepped forward gently. "Good morning. I'm here for the interview," he said, breathing heavily. She glanced at him once, then looked at the wall clock. Her expression hardened immediately. "You are 30 minutes late." "Ma, please, something happened on the road. She cut him off with a voice sharp enough to slice, through his words. "This company does not tolerate lateness. If you cannot respect time, you cannot work here." "Please, madam, just hear me," Jude pleaded softly. His voice trembled. Someone needed help. She didn't let him finish. "You are not competent. You may leave." The words struck him like a blow to the chest. He stood there, frozen, unable to move, unable to understand how kindness had led to this moment. The receptionist had already looked away, attending to another file, dismissing him like a shadow. Slowly, Jude turned around. His feet felt like stones. He walked out of the building, down the steps, past the security post, until he reached a tree outside the compound. There he stopped and leaned his back against the rough bark, his eyes filled with tears, not loud tears, not dramatic, but the quiet ones that come from a heart too tired to fight anymore. "God, what am I doing wrong?" he whispered. Everything in him felt stretched, worn, close to breaking. He had tried, he had prayed, he had worked hard, yet life kept slipping through his fingers like water. He didn't know that the very woman whose car he fixed was, at that moment, taking her seat at a boardroom table, her mind drifting again and again to the young man who had helped her, despite being in a hurry. She remembered his tired eyes, the way he checked his wristwatch, the heaviness in his steps. She wondered quietly, did helping me cause him trouble? Her chest tightened with unease, but Jude couldn't feel that worry from across the city. All he felt was the weight of failure pressing down on him. He eventually pushed himself away from the tree and began walking home, each step a reminder of the opportunity he had lost. By the time he reached his small house, Lucy stood at the door with her arms folded tightly, the same posture she used whenever she was ready to attack his dignity. "So," she demanded, "how did it go? Did they give you the job?" Jude's eyes lowered. "Lucy, they didn't interview me. They sent me away because I arrived late." "Why were you late, Jude? Why?" she snapped. He swallowed hard. "There was a woman, stranded, her car." Before he could finish, Lucy exploded with fury. "You mean you threw away your interview because of a stranger? Are you serious?" Her voice rose. Her words fell like stones, and her anger drowned the small space around them. Jude tried to explain, but she didn't care. She shouted that he was lazy, foolish, useless, a failure. She packed her bags, ignored his tears, ignored his pleading hands, and walked out. When the door shut behind her, silence filled the house, a silence heavy enough to suffocate. Jude sank to the floor, clutching his file, whispering brokenly, "God, why me?" He didn't know that life was already weaving something bigger around him, something unexpected, something waiting just ahead. What new blow, or hidden blessing, will arrive next at Jude's fragile doorstep? Sometimes the deepest pain does not arrive with noise. It arrives quietly, with a knock on the door and a truth too heavy to hold. Jude had already lost an opportunity, lost his strength, and lost Lucy's trust. But he didn't know the next heartbreak was steps away, wrapped in an envelope he didn't ask for. A full week dragged by like a cloud refusing to move. Jude sat alone in his dim living room, staring at the empty wall as if it could explain why life had broken him so completely. The house felt colder. The silence felt louder. His heart felt bruised. "This is my life now," he whispered to himself, his voice barely rising above the air. No job, no savings, no partner, nothing but a fading hope and a file full of dreams no one wanted to see. He leaned his head back against the wall. What will I do now? He thought of labor jobs, hard work, anything at all. But even that thought felt like climbing a mountain barefoot. Then, a knock at the door, soft, unexpectedly. Jude lifted his head slowly, as if afraid the sound might vanish. He opened the door to find a young man holding a brown envelope. "Good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Jude?" "Yes," Jude answered quietly. "This is for you." The courier handed him the envelope and left immediately. Jude closed the door gently, his hands trembling. A strange heaviness grew inside him as he opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, a ring, Lucy's wedding ring. For a moment, the world stood still. Jude stared at the ring, the dull silver glinting faintly in the dim light. He looked at the paper, divorce documents. His breath caught, his eyes burned, his chest tightened. She really left, he whispered. He held the ring to his chest gently, as though it were something fragile. His legs weakened beneath him, and he sank into the nearest chair. Tears slid down his cheeks in silence. He didn't shout. He didn't fight. He simply broke. "I lost everything. Everything," he murmured. That night he sat in darkness again. The only sound was his quiet breathing and the distant noise of the neighborhood outside. But inside him, a small shift happened, barely noticeable, yet powerful. "I must survive," he whispered. "I must do something. Anything." It wasn't strength. It was a necessity. Hope didn't rise. Survival did. The next morning, before the sun fully climbed into the sky, Jude stepped out. His steps were slow, but they were steps forward. He walked from shop to shop, asking gently, "Good morning. Is there any work I can do here?" Some said no. Some looked at him and scoffed. Some doubted he could do hard labor. Most ignored him altogether. Still he walked. Sweat gathered on his forehead. His clothes stuck to his skin. His throat felt dry. But he kept moving. He knew that staying home meant drowning in sorrow. Then he reached a large construction site. Men lifting blocks, mixing, cement, carrying heavy loads under the unforgiving sun. Dust filled the air. The sound of hammers rang out. Maybe here. Maybe someone would say, yes. He approached a worker. "Please, I'm looking for work. Any work at all?" The man pointed to a shaded spot. "Talk to the supervisor." Jude walked there, his heart pounding. The supervisor sat in a plastic chair, stern-faced, unimpressed. "What do you want?" he asked. "Sir, I need a job. I can carry blocks, fetch water, mix cement, anything." The supervisor studied him closely. "You look like an office man. Why do you want this kind of work?" Jude swallowed. "Life happened, sir. I just need a chance." At first, the supervisor shook his head. "No space." Jude stepped closer, desperation trembling in his voice. "Please, sir, just one day. If I fail, send me away." A long silence. Then finally a small nod. "Be here tomorrow. 6 a.m. sharp. If you're late, don't come." Relief washed over Jude like water on dry ground. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." He walked home with tired steps, but inside him, something new flickered. A tiny, quiet belief that maybe life hadn't finished with him yet. But what unexpected force will return to Jude's story while he struggles to rebuild from dust and sweat? There are seasons in life when survival becomes a full-time battle, where a man's hands must carry what his heart can no longer hold. Jude entered such a season quietly, stepping into each dawn with aching muscles and a determination carved out of pain. The next morning, when the sky was still a dark shade of blue and the birds had barely begun to stir, Jude walked quickly toward the construction site. His clothes were simple, his steps were steady, and his mind whispered the same sentence again and again. Don't be late. By the time he reached the site, some workers were already pushing wheelbarrows, lifting blocks, and mixing cement in large iron tubs. The supervisor glanced at Jude and gave a short nod, the unspoken confirmation that Jude had kept his word. Jude began working immediately. He carried heavy cement bags that made his shoulders burn. He lifted blocks until his arms trembled. He fetched water again and again, his feet sinking into the muddy ground with every step. Sweat rolled steadily down his face, dripping onto the dusty earth. His back felt tight, his palms bruised, his legs shaky, but he did not stop. Every task he completed felt like a piece of dignity restored. Every drop of sweat felt like a seed of hope planted. Even though the pain was real, the work gave him something he had lost: purpose. As he worked, memories from his old life drifted in and out like distant ghosts. The office where he once stood in confidence. The white shirts he used to wear before cement stains became his new uniform. The car he drove with pride. The evenings he shared with Lucy when their love still felt gentle. Then darker memories surfaced. Dabzazwai, insults, the coldness, Lucy's voice echoing harshly. The moment she shut the door behind her, the divorce ring shining painfully in his hand. Jude swallowed hard and kept lifting. No matter what, he whispered under his breath, I will not break. Days passed like slow-moving storms. Jude worked from sunrise to sunset, sometimes without eating properly. His wages were small, but enough to survive another day. And each evening, no matter how tired he felt, he found the strength to iron his shirt, straighten his file, and carry his CV to offices around the neighborhood. Good evening, he would say gently. Please, I came to submit my CV. Some received it politely. Some ignored him completely. Some looked at his dusty clothes and assumed he was in the wrong place. Still, Jude kept walking. He never gave up. He didn't know how to. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, life moved fast around Madame Rose. Her driver picked her up every morning. Her days were filled with board meetings, budgets, presentations, and long calls with investors. She was a woman of power, but her heart never fully let go of the memory of the young man who fixed her car without hesitation. Every time her car slowed at a traffic light, she would look out the window and whisper softly, I hope he is fine. Sometimes she wished she had asked for his name or contact. Sometimes she wondered if helping her had caused him trouble. But the demands of her job kept pushing the thought aside. Meanwhile, Jude's construction team did not work in one location. Some days they were sent to a far corner of the city. Sometimes the sites were dangerous or deserted. But Jude woke before dawn each morning and walked out into the cold air, determined to keep moving forward. One day, after weeks of labor, the supervisor gathered the workers in a small circle. His voice carried across the dusty ground. We are moving to a new site tomorrow. Pack the tools. The next morning, the men loaded heavy tools into the back of an old truck. Jude climbed in with the others, holding the side of the truck as it rattled over a rough road. Dust rose behind them, painting the air brown. When they arrived at the new site, Jude felt something shift inside him. He didn't know why. He couldn't explain it. But this place felt important. As he lifted blocks and mixed cement under the rising sun, he had no idea that destiny had brought him to a location where his past, his struggle, and his unanswered questions were about to collide with something he thought he had lost. Who is about to walk onto this site and unknowingly step back into Jude's unfinished story? Some reunions do not arrive with celebration. Some come quietly, carried on the wind of coincidence, wrapped in dust and sweat. Jude did not know that while he bent over cement and iron rods, a familiar pair of eyes was about to fall upon him, eyes that had been searching silently without knowing where to look. The new construction site was large, open, and scattered with piles of sand, stones, and long steel rods. The sun rose slowly, casting a pale light across the workers moving rhythmically like shadows in motion. Jude was already at work, mixing cement with steady determination, his shirt stained, his hands trembling from effort, but his spirit pushing onward. His muscles ached, but he kept moving. His back burned, but he didn't stop. His mind wandered, but his hands worked with purpose. Each scoop of sand, each lift of a block, each step through the gritty dust was a reminder that survival often begins long before success shows its face. Under a small tree nearby, Jude later sat for his short break. He unwrapped a small snack, a simple bite of bread, purchased with the little he saved. He chewed quietly, staring at the wide sight before him, breathing deeply as he tried to gather strength for the hours still ahead. But on that same morning, far across the city, someone else was preparing for a very different kind of visit. Madame Rose, dressed elegantly as always, stepped out of her house with a calm but purposeful expression. The government housing estate project she was overseeing had finally reached the construction stage, and today she intended to see the progress with her own eyes. Her driver opened the car door, and she entered gracefully, followed closely by her personal assistant. As they drove, her mind wandered again to the young man who fixed her car, his tired eyes, his hurried steps, the way he refused a ride despite clearly needing help. She whispered quietly, "I hope he's doing well." Minutes later, the car stopped at the entrance of the construction site. Workers paused to look at her. Her presence commanded attention, confident, composed, and unmistakably important. The supervisor hurried toward her with respect in his posture. "Good morning, madam. I'm the site supervisor." "Good morning," Rose replied. "Please take me around." They began walking through the site. Her PA followed, taking notes as the supervisor explained the progress and challenges of the project. And then, it happened. Rose stopped walking, her eyes fixed ahead as if time itself had paused. There he was, Jude, bent over a mixing tub. His hands were coated with cement, sweat rolling down his face, his shirt faded and stained, his shoulders carrying more weight than they should. She blinked, stunned. Her heart jumped. "It's him," she whispered, barely audible. Her PA looked at her. "Madam, are you okay?" Rose didn't answer. She took a slow step forward, unable to look away. She had imagined seeing him again in an office, on the street, maybe in a simple encounter, but never here, covered in dust, performing back-breaking labor. At that exact moment, Jude lifted his head. He saw a well-dressed woman standing a short distance away. Something about her face tugged at his memory. He squinted slightly, trying to place where he had seen her. Rose began walking toward him. Jude wiped the sweat from his forehead. He looked again, harder this time. When she finally reached him, she gave a soft, gentle smile. "Good afternoon," she said quietly. "Do you remember me?" Jude froze. His breath caught. Her voice, her face, the roadside, the broken car. "Madam, I think we've met before, but—" Rose smiled deeper. "I'm the woman whose car stopped that morning, the day you were rushing somewhere." Recognition washed over him instantly. "Oh. Yes, madam. I remember now." He lowered his eyes shyly. "It was nothing, madam. Anyone would have helped." "No," Rose replied softly. "Not everyone would have stopped, but you did." She looked at him again, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and concern. Then she asked the question that would open a door neither of them expected. "Jude, why are you here? You don't look like someone meant for this kind of job." What truth will Jude reveal beneath the small tree, and how will it change the course of both their lives? Some stories sit heavy on the heart until someone caring enough whispers, "I am ready to listen." and under the shade of a small tree on that dusty site, Jude finally released the weight he had carried alone, never knowing his truth would shift something deep inside the woman sitting beside him. When Rose asked him gently, "Why are you here?" Jude looked down, unable to meet her eyes. It wasn't shame he felt. It was the fear of breaking open. Rose waited patiently. She didn't pressure him. She didn't rush him. Her silence was soft, inviting him to breathe. The supervisor stood nearby, unsure whether to interrupt until Rose turned slightly toward him. "I'd like to speak with this young man alone," she said in a calm, firm tone. "Yes, madam," the supervisor replied quickly, stepping away. Jude pointed to a small tree at the edge of the site, a place where workers often sat during short breaks. The shade there was thin, but enough to offer a little comfort from the sun. "Let's sit there," he said quietly. "Of course," Rose replied, following him gently. Her personal assistant started to walk with them, but Rose raised a hand. "Please wait here. Don't follow." "Yes, madam," the PA said respectfully. They walked to the wooden bench beneath the small tree and sat down. The site noises hummed in the background, shovels scraping, workers calling to each other, wheelbarrows clattering on stones. But under that tree, it felt like a separate world, calm and expectant. Rose folded her hands and looked at Jude with empathy that made his chest tighten. "Jude," she said softly, "I want to hear your story. You said it was long. I'm listening." Jude inhaled deeply, then exhaled slowly, trying to steady the emotions rising in him. "Madam, I used to have a very good life." He paused, gathering the courage to continue. "I had a good job as a petrochemical engineer. I lived in a comfortable house. I had a car. I married the woman I loved. Life was beautiful." Rose nodded, her eyes fixed on him, urging him to go on. "But one day everything changed," Jude continued. "The company I worked for went bankrupt. They laid off many of us. I tried to find another job. I tried so hard. I applied everywhere. No one called." The memory stung. His voice wavered. "As things got harder, my wife changed, too. She started insulting me every day. She said I was no longer a man. She said I had failed." Rose's expression softened with pain on his behalf. Jude swallowed, his throat tight. "The day I met you, the day I fixed your car, I was rushing for a job interview. I knew I was late, but when you asked for help, I couldn't leave you alone on that quiet street. So I helped." His eyes dropped to his hands. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "When I reached the company, they didn't allow me in. They sent me away. They didn't even listen." A sharp breath escaped Rose. "Oh, Jude." "That same day," Jude continued, voice breaking, "my wife called me a failure, and she left. A week later, she sent divorce papers through a courier." He paused, blinking back tears. "So I came here," he said quietly. "I started doing labor work. It's hard, madam. Some days I don't even eat, but I keep hoping that one day things will change." Rose sat silently, but her heart was anything but still. She looked at him, not with pity, but with admiration, with respect for a man who still carried kindness in a world that had given him nothing in return. "Jude," she whispered, "you have been through so much." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind shifted lightly. The sight noises faded in Jude's ears. Then Rose asked something he did not expect. "What did you study in school?" "Petrochemical engineering, madam," Jude replied gently. The answer stunned her. "You studied petrochemical engineering?" "Yes, madam," he nodded. "That was the job I lost." Rose slowly reached into her handbag and took out a small card, her business card. She held it out to him. "Take this," she said softly. "Please call me tomorrow morning. I want to help you." Jude looked at the card as though it carried a new beginning. Madam. Are you sure? Rose smiled. A warm, steady smile. Yes, Jude. Call me, please. Jude holds a card that could transform his life. But what powerful steps will Rose take the moment she returns home? Some blessings do not arrive with noise. They begin quietly, in the hands of someone who decides your pain matters. As Jude walked home that evening, holding Rose's business card as if it were a fragile miracle, he did not know the storm of compassion she was already preparing for him. The construction day ended like all others, with tired bodies and quiet footsteps heading home. Jude slipped the card into his pocket carefully, touching it again and again, almost afraid it would disappear. It felt unreal. After months of hardship, someone had finally looked at him with something other than pity or frustration. But while Jude walked away, uncertain and trembling with hope, Rose was carried back to her world of wealth and influence. Yet that world felt different now. She did not lounge in her living room. She did not go upstairs to rest. She did not remove her heels. Instead, she walked straight into her study with a fire in her eyes, one Jude did not know was burning for him. She picked up her phone immediately. "Good evening," she said when her assistant answered. Her voice held urgency. "Yes, madam." "I need to speak with the general manager of the petrochemical branch tonight." "Tonight?" the assistant repeated, surprised. "Yes," she responded firmly. "Right now." Within minutes, the call connected. "Good evening, Madam Rose," the general manager greeted respectfully. "Good evening," she replied. "I have someone I want you to see tomorrow. His name is Jude, a man with strong experience in petrochemical engineering. I want a full interview arranged for him, and look at him closely." "Of course, madam. What is his background?" Rose paused for a breath, remembering Jude's trembling voice under the small tree. "He has suffered," she said quietly. "But he is brilliant. I will send his details tomorrow." "Understood, madam." When she ended the call, Rose stood still for a long moment. She had met many people in her life, businessmen, politicians, investors, but very few had touched her heart the way Jude had, with nothing but honesty and kindness. She whispered softly into the quiet room. "He helped me when he needed help more. Now it's my turn." Meanwhile, in his small room on the other side of the city, Jude sat at the edge of his bed, holding the business card with both hands. The room was dim and silent, and the little card glowed like a candle in his palm. "God, is this real?" he whispered. He didn't sleep much that night. Every time he closed his eyes, his thoughts drifted back to the conversation under the tree, to Rose's warm voice, to the hope she placed in his hands. He held on to that card as though losing it would send him back into darkness. When dawn finally arrived, Jude was already dressed in his cleanest shirt, the one he saved for the rare days when he needed to feel like himself again. His hands were slightly shaky as he picked up his phone and dialed the number. The call rang once. "Good morning, Jude," Rose said warmly. "Please come to my office this morning. Bring your CV. I am sending the address now." Her confidence stunned him. "Madam." "Your office?" "Yes. Come as soon as you can." "Okay, madam. I will come. Thank you." When the call ended, Jude stood still for several seconds. Then a small, trembling smile spread across his face. He tucked his CV into his file, combed his hair carefully, and stepped outside. As he boarded a bus, he whispered a prayer. "Please, let this be the turning point." The bus moved through the city, and Jude watched the buildings pass by as though the world itself was shifting around him. When he finally stepped out at the address Rose had sent, he stood before a tall, impressive building, far grander than anything he had entered in years. Inside, the receptionist greeted him with a smile, a new experience for him. "Good morning, sir. How may I help you?" I have an appointment with Madam Rose." "Your name, sir?" "Jude." She dialed the intercom quickly. "Madam, Mr. Jude is here. After a moment, she smiled warmly. Madam is expecting you. Please follow me. Jude followed her down a quiet hallway until they reached a large office door. She opened it gently. Madam, he is here. Rose looked up from her desk with a smile that made Jude's heart steady itself. Welcome, Jude, she said softly. Please sit. But what will happen when Rose brings in someone Jude never expected to meet? The person who can change his entire career in a single decision? Jude sat slowly, his palms sweating slightly as he held his file. He had been in offices like this long ago, but now, after months of carrying cement, lifting blocks, and sleeping on a thin mattress, everything felt unreal. The polished floors, the cold air conditioning, the quiet hum of the building. It was a world he thought he had lost forever. Rose watched him quietly for a moment. She could see the nervousness in his eyes, the exhaustion behind his smile, the weight of everything he had carried alone. She leaned forward slightly. Jude, she said in a warm tone, relax. You are safe here. Those simple words felt like water on dry soil. Jude nodded slowly. Rose picked up her phone. You may come in now, she said. A few seconds later, the office door opened, and a tall man in a well-tailored suit stepped inside. His presence filled the room with authority. Jude's heartbeat quickened. Good morning, madam. Good morning, sir, the man greeted politely. Rose turned to Jude with a small smile. Jude, she said gently, this is the general manager of my petrochemical company. Jude's eyes widened. Your petrochemical company? Rose nodded calmly. Yes, I own it. For a moment, Jude's breath caught. All this time, he had helped a woman whose influence stretched further than he could imagine. Yet she had hidden nothing, acted with no pride, spoken to him like an equal. General Manager, Rose continued, this is the man I told you about. Please take him for a full interview. The manager smiled professionally. Of course, madam. Jude, follow me. Jude stood up slowly, unsure if his legs would support him. He followed the manager down another hallway into a bright office filled with documents, awards, and certificates. The man gestured for him to sit. Let's begin, he said, picking up Jude's CV. As he scanned through the pages, his expression changed from calm interest to genuine surprise. You have very strong experience, he said. Very strong. Jude swallowed, his voice soft. Thank you, sir. The manager asked technical questions, detailed ones, the kind Jude had not answered in a long time. But something extraordinary happened. The knowledge returned to him like a river returning to its path. His voice became steady. His mind grew sharp again. He explained processes, machinery, past achievements, engineering solutions he once created. The manager nodded again and again, impressed. When the questions ended, the manager stood up, walked around the table, and extended his hand. Congratulations, Jude, he said with a smile. You are now the technical manager of our engineering department. Jude froze. Sir, me, he whispered. Yes, the manager replied. Madam Rose believes in you, and now I do too. Jude shook his hand slowly, unable to speak. His eyes watered, but he tried to hide it. The manager smiled knowingly. Come, he said gently. Madam Rose will want to speak with you. As they walked back to her office, Jude felt his heart beating so loudly, he thought the whole building could hear it. The receptionist smiled at him as he passed. The hallways no longer felt intimidating. They felt like hope. The manager opened the door. Madam, he said, I am done. Rose looked at Jude immediately, reading his face before he even spoke. Well? She asked softly. Jude's voice broke. I got the job, madam. Rose stood up with a smile that lit up the room. I knew you would, she said gently. The moment those words touched the air, Jude's emotions broke free. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he covered his face with both hands. "Madam, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say." Rose stepped closer and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Jude," she said, her voice warm and full of meaning. "Your kindness was not wasted. If you didn't help me that morning, I would have missed a deal that made my company even stronger. You helped me without knowing. And now, it was my turn to help you." Jude cried quietly. "God bless you, madam. God bless you." Rose smiled. "You deserve a good life, Jude. Now go and build it." And just like that, the door to the life he thought he lost opened again. But this new beginning would soon echo through the entire city, reaching someone who once walked away from him, someone who would not be ready for the man he had become. Jude walked out of Rose's office holding his file, but this time the file did not feel heavy. For the first time in a long while, his chest felt light. His steps were steady, his heart full, and his eyes glimmered with a hope he had not felt since the days before. Everything fell apart. He had a job again. Not just any job. A managerial position in one of the biggest petrochemical companies in the country. He stood outside the building for a moment, staring up at the tall glass structure, the sunlight reflecting beautifully against it. "God, thank you," he whispered. That evening, when he returned to his small, dimly lit home, he sat on his bed and held his head in his hands. After everything, the insults, the hunger, the construction work, the heartbreak, the loneliness, God had remembered him. Just a few weeks later, Jude officially resumed work. The company car picked him up every morning. For the first time in months, he wore clean shirts, polished shoes, and walked into a place where he was respected. Inside the office, everyone admired him, not because of his clothes, but because of his mind. Jude remembered every technical detail, every formula, every machine structure he used to work with. His ideas were sharp, creative, and full of experience. He suggested new methods to improve production. He identified an outdated system no one noticed. He corrected a major flaw in one of the project's designs. And slowly, quietly, Jude became the backbone of the engineering department. Every week brought new progress. Every month brought new achievements. Madame Rose watched him closely, not with suspicion, but with pride. She saw the fire in him, the dedication, the humility, the gentleness that never left his eyes, even after everything he endured. One afternoon, Rose called him into her office. "Jude," she said with a soft smile, "you have done more for this company in a short time than many people have done in years. I want you to know I see your work. I appreciate your heart." Jude lowered his eyes respectfully. "Thank you, madam. I only want to make you proud." Rose handed him a document. "This," she said, "makes you a part of the company's decision-making body. It comes with a major raise." Jude blinked several times. "Madam." "Me?" Rose nodded. "You earned it." Tears filled Jude's eyes. "You don't know what this means to me." Rose shook her head gently. "Oh, I do. And I'm happy for you." That week, Jude moved out of his tiny house and into a modern, beautifully furnished apartment provided by the company. He bought new clothes, new furniture, new everything. But his humility remained intact. Workers respected him. Managers admired him. And Rose trusted him deeply. In just a few months, Jude went from carrying cement on his head to sitting in a boardroom, making decisions that shaped the company's future. Life flipped. Life rose. Life shined. But destiny was not done yet. Far away, in a quiet part of the city, Lucy sat on her plastic chair, scrolling through her phone. She was thinner now, more stressed, her eyes tired. But the moment she stopped scrolling, her breath froze. There, on her screen, was Jude. Standing in front of a beautiful new house, dressed neatly, smiling confidently, looking like the man she once married, but better, stronger, brighter. Right under the picture was his caption, "My new home. Grateful for how far life has brought me." Lucy's mouth fell open. Her hands began to shake. Her heart raced. "No, no, no," she whispered, scrolling again. Pictures of his new office. Pictures of him beside a company car. Pictures of him in meetings. Pictures of him looking successful and peaceful. Memories attacked her like a flood. The insults she threw, the words she used the day she walked out the divorce letter. She sent the ring she returned. And now, this? Tears dropped onto her phone. "What have I done?" she whispered. Regret swallowed her whole. She grabbed a small bag, wiped her face, and rushed out of the house. She asked for Jude's new address from people who knew him. She traveled across the city. She walked from one street to another until she finally reached the tall, beautiful gates. "Please," she told the gate man, her voice trembling, "tell your boss that Lucy is here." The gate man stared at her and nodded. Minutes later, the door opened, and Jude stepped out. What will Jude do when the woman who abandoned him returns, now begging to be part of the life he rebuilt without her? Jude stepped out of his beautiful home, the afternoon sun casting a gentle glow over the driveway. His posture was calm, steady, dignified, nothing like the exhausted, broken man he once was. But when his eyes fell on the woman kneeling at the gate, his breath tightened for a brief moment. Lucy. The same woman who once called him useless. The same woman who packed her bags without a second thought. The same woman who mailed him a divorce letter like he was a stranger. And now, she was kneeling, in front of his gate, trembling. "Jude! Jude, please," Lucy cried, her palms pressed together. "I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me." Her voice cracked with every word. Her eyes were red, her hair slightly scattered. She looked nothing like the proud, sharp-tongued woman who had walked out on him. Jude stood still for a moment, silent. Not angry, not bitter, not cruel, just peaceful. "Lucy," he said softly. The gentleness in his tone broke her heart even more. She burst into tears, her voice shaking as she tried to speak. "Jude, I didn't know. I didn't know life would turn like this. I was foolish. I was blind. I should have stayed. I should have supported you. Please, let me come back. I will change. I promise." Her words poured out quickly, desperate and trembling. Jude lowered his eyes for a moment, remembering everything she had said before. Lazy, useless, a failure, not a real man. He remembered how she slammed the door. He remembered how he fell to the floor crying afterward. He remembered the divorce letter and the ring she sent. And then he remembered something else. The quiet nights he spent alone, asking God for strength. The days at the construction site, pushing through pain. The help he received from Rose when he least expected it. The new life he was rebuilding. Slowly, quietly, with gratitude. He looked back at Lucy. "I forgave you," he said calmly. Lucy gasped, her eyes widened with sudden hope. "Then, Jude, can I come back? Can we start over?" she asked, inching forward on her knees. Jude took a deep breath. "No, Lucy," he said gently. "We cannot." Lucy's face twisted in shock. "Jude, please, please don't say that. You left when life was hard," he continued softly. "You left when I needed support. You left when I was broken. A marriage built only on comfort is not a marriage. It is a shelter of convenience." Lucy shook her head desperately. "I know, Jude. I know I hurt you. But I will change." He raised a hand gently. "Lucy, it's not about punishment. It's about peace. And truly, anyone looking at him could see it. He wasn't angry at her. He wasn't seeking revenge. He wasn't satisfied by seeing her kneel. He was simply done. Lucy wiped her tears, chest heaving. "Jude, please don't turn me away." "I have nowhere else to go." Jude stepped back inside, briefly. Lucy broke down completely, thinking he had abandoned her again. But a moment later, he returned holding a brown envelope. He placed it gently in her hands. "This," he said quietly, "is the divorce document. I have signed it." Lucy stared at the envelope like it was on fire. "No. Jude. Please," she whispered, her voice breaking into sobs. Jude shook his head slowly. "Go home, Lucy. Fix your life. I wish you well." The kindness in his tone shattered her completely. She lowered her head and wept until her shoulders shook. For the first time, she understood what she had lost. Not just a husband, but a good man with a good heart. Jude turned and walked back inside, his steps calm, his spirit unshaken. He closed the door quietly behind him and breathed deeply. No pain, no bitterness, only peace. He stood in his beautiful living room, the sunlight filling the space with warmth. His life had changed, his future was bright, and his heart was free. Somewhere outside, Lucy cried into her palms, realizing too late that she had lost the one person who truly loved her. But destiny wasn't done, because Jude's journey was about to reveal one final truth: that kindness, once planted, grows into blessings that echo far beyond anything he could imagine. Some blessings arrive quietly, without noise, without ceremony, without warning. They slip into a man's life the same way dawn slides into night, slowly, gently, beautifully. For Jude, everything he had lost began to return in ways he never expected. And all of it started from the morning he stopped to help a woman stranded on a quiet road. His new position at Madame Rose's petrochemical company wasn't just a job, it was a rebirth. Jude poured himself into the work with honesty, discipline, and brilliance that had always lived inside him. The first few weeks, he spent long hours studying aging machines, testing new systems, sketching improved designs. The engineers under him watched in quiet admiration, and then one breakthrough idea changed everything. Jude redesigned a crucial processing unit, reducing operational costs and doubling output. When the company tested it, the results stunned even the oldest engineers. Production increased, expenses dropped, investors returned with renewed excitement. Within months, the company achieved growth it hadn't seen in years. Madame Rose watched all of this with a kind of quiet pride. She had trusted her intuition. She had followed the soft tug in her heart that whispered, "This man deserves a chance." One afternoon, she sent for him. Jude walked into her office, well-dressed, confident, yet humble. His steps were steady, nothing like the hesitant footsteps of the man who once mixed cement under the sun. "Jude," Rose said softly, "you've done more for this company than you realize." He bowed his head with gratitude. "Thank you, madam." She slid a document across the table. "You are now part of the company's decision-making body. This comes with a raise and additional responsibilities. You've earned your place." For a moment, Jude couldn't speak. His eyes shimmered. His breath shook. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the weight of everything he had survived. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much." Rose's smile warmed. "You helped me when you needed help the most. Now look at what kindness has given you." Jude walked out of her office that day with a full heart. From that moment, everything rose even higher. He bought a house in one of the city's finest neighborhoods. He invested wisely. He became respected not only as an engineer, but as a man whose humility inspired others. People who once ignored him now leaned forward to listen. Workers greeted him with respect. Even those who had never met him spoke his name with admiration. But Jude remained grounded, always remembering the man he used to be, the pain he survived, and the stranger whose gratitude changed his life. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, regret ate Lucy alive. When she saw Jude's picture online, smiling, standing in front of his beautiful home, her world shattered. She remembered every insult, every hurtful word, every moment she crushed him. She remembered the day she walked away, and so she tried to return. But destiny had already closed that chapter, a chapter she had torn apart with her own hands. Back in Jude's world, new possibilities began to unfold. He traveled for meetings, spoke at seminars, trained young engineers. He became a symbol of perseverance, of quiet faith, of the power of doing good when no one is watching. And whenever people asked him what changed his life, he always said the same thing. A simple act of kindness, because truly, if he had walked past that stranded woman, if he had ignored her call for help, if he had chosen himself over compassion, everything that followed would never have happened. Sometimes, blessings hide behind interruptions. Sometimes, breakthroughs hide behind delays. Sometimes, a life changes because someone refuses to walk past another person's suffering. One evening, Jude stood on the balcony of his new home, the city lights reflecting in his calm eyes. The breeze was soft. His heart was full. He whispered, "Thank you for everything." He wasn't thanking success. He wasn't thanking wealth. He wasn't even thanking the life he now lived. He was thankful for the journey, the broken moments, the painful losses, the quiet endurance, the grace of unexpected kindness, because all along, destiny had not been destroying him. It had been shaping him. And as Jude closed his eyes with gratitude, life whispered one final truth. The kindness you give out returns, not in the same size, but multiplied beyond measure, waiting for the moment you least expect. If Jude's journey touched your heart, don't leave quietly. Your voice matters here. Share your thoughts below. I would love to read what part of his story stayed with you the longest. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next life-changing tale. And if this story moved you, gently tap the like button and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your engagement keeps these powerful stories alive.